Well, here's something I did not think I'd be saying today, and that's that we got a new Kendrick Lamar album announced via his Twitter in probably the best way possible. And I say that because, we're on his Twitter right now. We click here. This guy said Kendrick Lamar is officially retired, February 13th, 2022. Kendrick responds with this website link today, and you click on it. You look here, you click here, you're like, oh, what's that? New album, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, May 13th, 2022. You go back and you get a little, what seems to be a message here from Kendrick himself, although he has seemed to change his name to the moniker Oklama. Let's talk about this a little bit. So I looked at, what is Oklama? So we look up Oklama and automatically you get directed to Oklahoma, which that's the Google algorithm working its magic, saying, okay, I think you meant to spell this. So I specifically went and clicked on, Oklahoma, look at what that is. And we zoom in, and I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I just know Kendrick always dips Easter eggs into each of his albums and album promo. So I thought this was fun to dissect a little bit. So, Oklama, let's make the word Oklama out of this. Oklama, easy enough, right? Well, what two words did we take out there? Or what two letters did we take out there? Took out ho, which happens to be Baby Keem's ad-lib of choice. I just thought this was fun to point out, honestly, because, Kendrick doesn't do things by mistake. I'm sure there's a reason PG Lang is named what it is as well. I haven't really looked into that, but this is fun. Kendrick giving us just one little tiny snippet at what's going on in his life, in his career, and what's coming next with his album. So we look at this statement here, and he's talking about how he's basically spent his days since, I'm assuming, his last album, reflecting, being alone, being away from the phone, and also talking about how this is his final TDE album, which we knew up until this point, but then he goes on and says that he wants to continue to pursue his life's calling. We don't know what that might be. It might be something outside of music. But then saying that there's beauty in completion and always faith in the unknown. What does he mean by this? There's beauty in completion. I think he means that, this is his final TDE album, and he's essentially wrapping up a very important stage in his life. And while he might be leaving TDE to do bigger and better things, if that was even possible, I think what he's teasing at here is music is not leaving his artistic circle, but, I think the shape of it, or what we know of it to be now, that might change a little bit. That is what I took from this statement. And you go back, you click on this little thing here, this is the press release from PG Lang themselves. And I love sort of the very minimalistic, which obviously all press releases are like this, but just one word. He essentially could say I'm back, and it means the same thing as Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers release date, May 13th, 2022. Now, Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, I don't really think there's much to this other than sort of showing the dichotomy between which Kendrick raps in the culture in the way that he speaks about it, in that, I think he talked about a lot of this stuff very eloquently on To Pimp a Butterfly and Good Kid, Mad City, where it's this violent environment that, is violent for reasons outside of your control, but you're forced to live in it and finding beauty in the destruction and sadness around you, and saying, I think essentially he has morality and he has, an ethical moral compass, but he still has to get stuff done when it needs to be done. And he still needs to be there for his friends and family, and sometimes maybe do things outside of that ethical boundary of what he's comfortable with, but in the name of the ones that he loves. Again, I might be analyzing this too deeply, but, Kendrick, like I've said, is so deliberate with everything he does. So I think it's appropriate to potentially overanalyze these things and give Kendrick that benefit of the doubt of, there is something else here. There is something deeper than what lays on the surface. And I think his very blanket, press statement and then releasing that tweet, I think goes about showing that. And something with this tweet as well is, I think this is very deliberate too. This was tweeted February 13th. And now we're in April, where Kendrick fired off this tweet with announcing the album. And, I think this is special because I think it's a big middle finger from Kendrick to the L ratio generation, or sort of that type of activity on social media where it is so hyper involved in and everything possible that you just want the artist's attention, even if it is overwhelmingly negative, even if it's you just picking at the artist, making fun of them, making a joke out of them. I think Kendrick has seen this happen in the culture right now so aggressively, and especially since we are in this serotonin fueled, I think, time right now in hip hop with the Rolling Louds and everybody trying to fight to make it into the viral space at that time. You know, I think a good example of this is the guys that made that annoying Cardigan song. Yeah, you know how it sounds like 645 AR? They reached out to him for a feature and he said no. They were just looking to capitalize off of that sound, and, you know, tough luck that the guy that originated it says no to you. I think Kendrick is sort of, looking at that problem specifically of biting people in the culture and becoming viral by any means necessary, even if that means stealing from another artist or putting somebody else down to put you up. I think this is Kendrick saying that with what is probably going to end up being the most legendary ratio in Twitter history. So I think that is just, you know, what this speaks to, I think, larger than just the tweet in the album itself. I think it's kind of a really cool and interesting way that Kendrick went about actually announcing this album. You know, like I've said, the industry's been in this sort of weird dopamine cycle for a few years, and with, I think, you know, up and coming artists just being churned out like nothing. You know, right now Yeet is at the center. I think he's gonna last a while, but, you know, he could very well disappear in the next 6 months. That is completely possible because of the way hip hop culture operates around and with social media, in a way that you have to be a part of one if you want to be a part of the other. If you want to be a part of music, you have to be in social media. There is no other choice. And Kendrick has very deliberately taken a stance against this because of the position he's built for himself within the industry to be so legendary, have such a dedicated following, and be able to do things like this and still have the public behind you 100% and know that you're going #1 first week no matter what. He could literally not announce it and he would still go #1 first week, unless it's like, I don't know, Kanye's dropping that week too. That's how powerful TDE and Kendrick are within the rap world right now, where, you know, one tweet, one album announcement from Kendrick will change how the culture, what they're talking about that day and that week. You know, Kendrick knows all the power that he has in these situations, and to see him, you know, take that and do his own thing so aggressively and so unapologetically is always a beautiful and great thing to see, because it shows how powerful these figureheads in hip hop are, like Kendrick, and how influential they are on not only the artists around them, but on the audiences that are so encapsulated by what they do. And with this album will naturally come a tour. When the tour will happen, I think it's going to be next year. Given the way that Kendrick has released in the past few years, you know, that's an overstatement. Kendrick hasn't dropped in the last few years, but when he dropped Damn, you know, the tour wasn't right away, if I remember correctly. So I think we'll see him go on a stadium tour next year, and I think we'll see him bring along baby Keem for the ride, and maybe somebody else from TDE as well. But yeah, new album from Kendrick Lamar. I am immensely excited. I've seen people talking about like, oh, I can't wait to see who's featured on it. I hope there's no features, honestly, unless we get something like Money Trees again or something like that, you know. I want Kendrick in front of this the whole time, but I'm curious what you guys think about the oklama part of it and just sort of the way that Kendrick announced this, because, you know, I think it stands in to represent how powerful not only he is within rap music today, but just how much of a stronghold he has on the culture, what they talk about, and how the people around him, being artists, operate in accordance with Kendrick's greatness. Thank you for watching, and please like and subscribe, as it really helps me out. Thank you.